Hello again, everyone. Kata Kosman, publisher of Madison's Lumber Reporter, coming to you at the beginning of December on a bright and sunny, warm day in Vancouver after all of this horrible November that we had with successive epic torrential downpours known as an atmospheric river. This last one that we were just so worried about in the early days of this week turned out to be not so bad. It did rain super hard, but not constantly for the 48 hours as was feared. It rained on and off for about one day. And now we're drying out. There is still a danger of some flooding impacting the low-lying areas that already had some really bad floods because during November when it was cooler, we did develop quite a snowpack on the higher elevations, which is now melting. So it's not raining, but the areas that flooded, at least they're not draining and might get a little bit worse over the next few days. So what we experienced here, especially in the early part of November, was hit the northern part of Washington State. Whatcom County this week had basically what we had in British Columbia South 2 weeks ago. So it's not even winter yet. We'll have to find out as time goes by what happens, but for sure, Madison's will be here to let you know. Subscribe here to my YouTube. If you have interest in the more detailed lumber price and lumber market information that I'm about to tell you, go to my website, madisonsreport.com. The link is in my caption. Along the top there, the subscribe menu, you can ask for a sample of the full 450 individual softwood lumber and panel commodity prices that come out every Friday, and the market commentary that goes along with it explaining why the prices have changed. So since now it's Thursday and my analyst is currently calling around doing the market survey to find out what the prices will be that we will print for our publication subscribers tomorrow morning on Friday, when I say what is the price is this week, which is what we gathered last week and published on Friday last week. But I do have some preliminary data for the benchmark Western Spruce 2x4 price that I talk about regularly, which I just got this morning from my analyst. The thing that people might want to take note of is that West Fraser, one of the three, large, like massive companies with all the sawmills here in British Columbia, is just yesterday announced downtime at the operations in the West due to not because they can't manufacture, but because they can't ship. And so there's a transportation issue. And I'm sure the other companies, as time goes by and we find out how it's going to be on the railways, how much product can move, what's happening with transportation on the rails and somewhat on the highways as well, other companies will probably likely follow suit with, if not actual downtime, then some curtailments. So West Fraser announced yesterday that lumber shipments are down almost 30%, and pulp shipments are down more than 80%. At the same time, demand in fourth quarter exceeded their expectations. So as I said in my previous video, that's quite unusual historically, but is following what happened last year. So let's look at the graphs. I'll show you specifically the Western Spruce 2x4 price and talk about where that data is compared to like last month, last year, and 2 years ago. And then I'll come back with a little bit more of an update on the larger market for forest products and lumber across North America right now. Okay, so it demonstrated very clearly on this graph. The blue line is this year and the yellow line is last year, 2020. And look at how they're matching up. Of course, last year the high was in third quarter before the prices dropped and then went up again right at the end of the year. And this year the high was in the spring with a huge drop, but then now ticking up again at a very unusual time of year. So what we have currently on my dashboard for subscribers to see is the price that we came up with on Friday last week. $645 US per 1,000 board feet on the benchmark Western spruce price that you're looking at right now, which was up $15 or 2% from the previous week when it was $630, and is up $16 or 3% from 1 month ago when it was $629. It's up $25 or 4% from 1 year ago when it was $620, so really quite consistent. And it's up $251 or 39% from 2 years ago when it was $394. Okay, so when I said that I had preliminary data for today, this Western Spruce 2x4 price is going to be US $710 per 1,000 board feet, which is up $65 or 10% from 1 week ago. For 10 years, there was not enough housing starts every year in the US to keep up with the demographic and the population, and that's why we're seeing so much building right now. So this is the 6 benchmark prices that I put on my website the week after my subscribers can see it. The other one that's important besides the Western Spruce is the Eastern Spruce, which is US $785 per 1,000 board feet, up $75 or 11% compared to the previous week when it was $710, up $80 or 10% from 1 year ago when it was $705. Again, very even compared to this year compared to last year, but up $315 or 40% from 2 years ago when it was $470. The third benchmark price, we call it that because these 3 products meet the building code and are used interchangeably for construction framing, is Southern Yellow Pine 2x4, which last week was $815 flat compared to the previous week due to the holidays of US Thanksgiving in America, up $230 or 28% compared to 1 year ago when it was $585, and up $415 or 60% compared to 2 years ago when it was $400. So this is what I say sometimes about this incredible increase in the prices that we are not going to see again. We're not going to see $384 Western Spruce 2x4 or $400 Southern Pine 2x4. But what we have is the increase in the price of Southern Pine now compared to 2 years ago, more than what the price was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Southern Pine 2x4s were $400. This week, they're up $415 to $815. So when I talk about this data, and I do point out the Western Spruce 2x4 because that's like the market leader, sort of the production volume here is greater than all of the others. And so it sets the price a little bit, but customers can change in between those 3 items if they don't like the price of one over the other. And so there is a little bit of a balance that goes on. And these 3, the top 3 lines of this table, really give you a good idea of where the market is at. Okay, so these prices, when I quote myself, is cash or print, is the actual price that customers pay for actual wood. What we do is FOB mill, sawmill gate prices. So they don't include commission, they don't include freight, they don't include the duty, which just doubled today, if anyone didn't catch my previous update. It's just the basic price for the lumber, right? The other way that people can look to see where they think the market is at is futures. And futures is a hedge, generally speaking, for players in the lumber market. And it's gone nuts, and I would say that's because of the floods that we've had here and the transportation issues, the very important supply basket of the spruce and the studs and these other products that comes out of British Columbia. So lumber futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange today closed up limit $45 to over $900. And so if you want to take that as an indicator of where cash is going to go, it's very important to note that it's just the early in the contract, right? Like futures can be very volatile during the time until it closes. So what I'm quoting right now is January 15th contract. So on futures, there can be a lot of up and down between now and January 15th, which doesn't really tell you what's happening with cash, but it does give you an idea of what the sentiment is. So what I think is that the prices are going to keep going up to the end of this year. I haven't received my market commentary from my analyst yet today that would take into account what's going on this week. But there's terror out there because basically all Canadian lumber moves on the rail. So our highways, the main highways are washed out. The railways were closed for a while, but they've reopened now. A huge backlog at the Port of Vancouver. Port of Vancouver is the third largest by volume port in North America. Is very important, and a lot of Canadian product moves like back and forth, like not just things coming offshore and going to British Columbia. It goes all the way across the country, and the reverse is also true, right? Um, like I mentioned about Washington State, we were diverting essential Canadian goods through the south. Is a very long trip. It's about triple the amount of time. But now I'm not sure what's going on there because if they're flooding, like I don't know, right? Like, is the US going to let Canadian mail trucks go on US highways when US people don't have groceries coming in? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of uncertainty, and people were keeping their lumber inventories lean because they were expecting, um, like waiting to see if the price was going to go up or down. And now the price was getting a little bit stronger because there's this boost to construction activity. And as you know from the West Fraser release, that lumber demand in fourth quarter was stronger than they had expected. At the same time, the realtors are saying for their business is strong, and there seems to be no longer seasonality in terms of what I generally say is things slowing down at the end of the year, which is true for this year and for last year. So this combination of really unprecedented events, the weather, the market, supply, the duty, all happening at the same time when people weren't really stocking up on wood because, you know, the prices were, again, compared to historical, relatively high. And so they were only buying what they needed at the moment and stocking, every couple of weeks or as frequently as they could, just to get what they need. So generally, like, to make my own assessment of what's happening with the market, if inventories are lean and sawmill order files are strong, which right now, I mean, it's the beginning of December, but my report last week was saying order files at sawmills were into December, and order file means how long is it going to take for your wood to go into production. If you call a sawmill today and ask for some material, how long before they make it? And so if an order file is 2 weeks, they're going to start making it in 2 weeks, and then you'll get it 3 to 6 weeks later, depending on where you are and what's happening with the railways and the transportation. So normally at this time of year, like after US Thanksgiving, heading into the holiday season, order files are 3 days or prompt. You call a mill, ask them for some material, and they will make it that day, right? So having the orders at the mills a lag of a couple of weeks or longer right now, while the supply chain is not stocked, the reloads, the secondary wholesalers do not have wood on hand, means that the price to the end of this year is not going to go down. Let's just say that. The price is not going to go down. It's probably going to go up at least for a couple of weeks until all of this current stuff that's just happened in British Columbia gets worked out. But keep in mind that we've got the duty now, double. What happened 2 years ago when the duty went double was that the Canadian mills sold into Canada and avoided the whole complication of the additional cost that goes to the customer, which technically the sawmills are supposed to pay, right? Like the whole point of the duty is that it's a penalty on the producer. So 2 years ago, when the duty was doubled, the Canadian mills sold into Canada and offshore. And when American customers called at like 8:30 in the morning, they were told, we're sold out, call back tomorrow. I'm guessing that a similar situation will happen now. And that is again going to throw off the supply demand balance in the favor of suppliers and will keep the prices strong. So for now, I'm just going to stop it there. That's my November 2021 lumber market summary. Like I said, subscribe here, go on my website, madisonsreport.com, subscribe there. There's really just 3 weeks left of this year. Madison's doesn't publish over the 2 holiday weeks. So after like December 17th or whatever the last Friday is before the holidays, we will be back January 7th.